Hello everyone, welcome to this new video here on my channel. As you can see by the title and by the thumbnail, this video will be on the Russian iceberg of conspiracies, paranormal and supernatural stuff, and just weirdness. I've seen such videos being posted on YouTube and I've been really tempted to make one about Russia because, we have a lot about Europe and America and the world in general, conspiracies about music industries and film industries, but nothing about Russia. And I just wanted to make my input into the topic of weird conspiracy icebergs and talk about the Russian one. I was really lucky to find one on the Russian image boards and I present it to you today. It's not the perfect one, it's still work in progress, but I think it's already quite great and we can already use it to talk about some weirdness in Russian politics, in Russian life, in Russian beliefs, etc. In today's video, I want to go through the first layer of the iceberg and from then proceed with the following layers. The first layer, it's quite easy, it's quite surface level, but still I think it's already very interesting. It already presents with a lot of stuff regarding the Russian life, regarding the Russian beliefs and Russian conspiracies that I think you will find interesting. There are some conspiracies and some ideas on this iceberg that are really, to be honest, not interesting, or they're like meme ones, joke ones. And on this first layer, there's like one conspiracy that I really want to do away with right now, and this is this one. Varum is Agutin with autotune. Basically, Angelica Varum and Leonid Agutin are, like this duo that sings songs, pop duo. And this theory claims that Agutin uses autotune to make his voice sound similar to Varum's for some reason. I really don't care. I think it's weird. It's not interesting. Like, let's move on. And let's move to the first actual conspiracy of this video, which is computer games kill. Basically, it is what it is. Computer games, if you play too much, you can die because you can play too much and you forget to eat or forget to drink water, you forget to sleep, you just forget to do things that you need to do to normally function. Like all of these stories from Korea and China where people would play for like 24, 48 hours straight and then just like fall dead. I mean, there's some legitimacy to it, of course, people do that. But, how real is it? It's not so real if you ask me, because, millions upon millions of people play video games every day and not all of them die from playing video games. It's just this weird belief that our parents had and that is put in this iceberg on the very, very top, because, that's like literally just like surface level, basic caring stuff. Oh, don't play those video games, they're evil for you. They're bad, they're made by Satan and they will destroy your soul and kill you. So I don't really want to dwell too long on it. And I want to move on to the next conspiracy, which is folk medicine conspiracy. And it's not even a conspiracy, I think it's just like idea that Russian people really love folk medicine, and I can attest to that myself. My family, my parents, my grandparents, they really love to use folk medicine. Like, for example, we would use dried up herbs or dried up, for example, raspberry leaves, or, just like tree bark, for example, as well. You make teas with it, you steep in water, you make baths with it. Or for example, you go to sauna for health benefits, you swim in the ice cold water, and you do all sorts of things. Like, for example, my grandma back in the 2000s, she was really into kombucha, making kombucha at home, SCOBY and all that stuff. And it's actually so cool looking back because, she was ahead of all of the trends, because kombucha became popular in late 2010s, like closer to 2020 in like California and New York. And here's my old grandma making kombucha at home, having growing SCOBY in jars back in 2000. And when I would come visit her, she would always drink this, don't drink these colas, Sprites, whatever, drink this is much better for you. And she was totally right. It is much better for you. I think it's proven that it's really good for your gut bacteria, it's really good for your body in general. So yeah, we Russian people, we really love our folk medicine, and I think it's here because, it's still not recognized by the actual scientific community as being really effective. Nothing beats just taking a pill and, dealing with all your problems like that. However, it still works. People in Russia still love it and use it daily, so that's why it's here. The next one will be Putin's clones. And this one, I mean, it's also rather straightforward. There's like this belief, this conspiracy in Russia that Putin might have cloned himself. Or it wasn't him, but some other people cloned him and Putin is actually dead. People made up this conspiracy and like they have these thoughts and beliefs because they are looking at Putin throughout the years and like he is physically changing so much. I mean, we're not just talking about, you know, maybe him growing old, of course. We're talking about shapes of his ears are changing, shape of his nose is changing, just like general like bone structure kind of changing. And besides that, people understand that Putin, coming from KGB, he might be a little bit paranoid, he might be a little bit like, you know, trying to protect himself. And possibly he has the technology to do that. So people believe that either he's alive and he is in the hiding and wherever he has to go outside and meet up with other heads of the governments or with like people just in general or go to forums or whatnot, he just sends out his clones while he himself just sits in Kremlin or in his bunker and just monitors everything. Alternatively, as I said, Putin might be already dead and Putin might have been cloned by the people in government just to protect the status quo, just to save it, you know, to not rock the boat, to not change the situation, but just use him as a pawn for their own political gain. I think that this conspiracy theory is kind of universal because like I bet you totally have similar conspiracy theories in America where like Clinton was cloned, Obama was cloned, Trump was cloned, Bush was cloned, or like even like Mark Zuckerberg was cloned, or you know, whomever else. Just like any important people, they're all cloned. No one is real. They're all in the hiding, you know, beneath Antarctica alongside Hitler, and all we see is a spectacle. Moving on to the next theory, and I will lump them together. It's charging the water and Kasperovsky. So why I lump them together? Basically, charging of the water is a process where you put your water in front of your TV, be it like in a glass, in a jar, in a bottle, just like you know, some container holding water. And people on TV, in this case it was Kasperovsky that really made this popular. Like he would have his TV program and he would charge it for you. So, you know, he would stare at the screen intently, waving his hands, saying like mantras and spells and whatever, and as such he would charge you water. This had all started in like late 1980s, early 1990s, when Russia had glasnost period, you know, like free speech alternative, and when people started to just dissociate themselves with the Soviet Union, but they still haven't found a new ideology or like belief to follow. During that time, there were a lot of like magicians, prophets, psychics, mediums, etc. that were coming out with their wildest ideas. And Kasperovsky was one of those people. He was like a superstar. He was this charismatic psychic. He promised people to heal them, to bring them luck, to help them to, you know, just like make their lives a fairy tale. And as a part of all of this, he had his TV program where he would, you know, help people out. They would call him and he would help them, or he would like charge the water so people would drink it and be blessed. Of course, it was immensely popular. As I said, it was like really widespread. People all over the country would do that, would put their jars and glasses of water and bottles of water to charge it up. But like, did it really help anyone? I don't think so. Still, even if it didn't help anyone, people were so lost during the like late 80s and 90s that people just wanted to follow someone. Another conspiracy theory, or just like theory on this higher level of the iceberg, is Lenin is a mushroom, and it also ties into this like whole TV stuff that was going on in the Soviet Union or like early Russia in the late 80s, early 90s. So Lenin is a mushroom. It's like actually it was like a hoax. It wasn't actually a theory or whatever, but it was a hoax in one of the episodes of a TV show where basically they tried to prove using like false science, pseudoscience, you know, just false facts, of course, that Lenin wasn't a person. Lenin was actually a mushroom. Basically, the theory was that like Lenin, throughout his life, he would actively use like psychotropic mushrooms, and he would eat them so much that he himself eventually turned into one. And basically it was like jokes. It was not real, of course. It was a sarcastic, ironic program, because the creators of the program really wanted to bring out this thing that when Russian people have gotten their free speech, and when all sorts of TV programs could be released on the Russian TV, a lot of weird false flags, misinformation came into the consciousness of the Russian people through the TV. And a lot of people got really lost in that, and they started to believe just like wildest things. And although free speech is great, you should also always work on understanding what is actually truth and what is lying to you. And some people were actually caught by that. Some people watched this TV program and they still had this belief lingering on from the Soviet times that, like, yeah, everything you watch on TV is truth. So they started to actively discuss that, and they started to actively, work this theory out. And only then, like, the creators of the TV program that came out, they were like, no, it's not truth. Of course it's not truth. We're just trying to prove our point that, people believe everything they see on the TV, and they should not do that. Following on with the lies, Lachtabots. And if you don't know what that is, I still think that you heard about the Russian misinformation on Twitter, on YouTube, and whatever. So Lachtabots, I think you understand what it means. Like Lachta, it's like a business center in St. Petersburg, Russia, where basically they have established this like troll farm where people are working, and they're working every day to spread Russian information online. Like bots, of course, like bots, because they're like robots, but it's not actually bots per se. Mostly it's like just like Russian people, typing out the comments and whatever on the internet. It's really similar to the Chinese Umao, which are also agents of the CCP, just spreading the Chinese information online. And Russian Federation, our government, because I'm from Russia, originally they kind of like disproved it. They were like, no, it does not exist, it's all lies, it's Western propaganda. And then they came out and they were like, no, actually it does exist. But it's good because we're just pushing against the evil propaganda of the Western world. We are pushing for the truth, we are pushing for traditional values, and we're pushing against all of this like psyops of the West. Which, I mean, of course, like, think whatever you want about that. I'm just giving you information and you yourself decide what you think about that. But I just think that, like, it's par for the course in the internet era for a government to have their own propaganda branches and to work online to spread their own version of the events. CCP does it, Russia does it, Britain does it, France does it, the US does it, everyone does it, because like everyone just wants to have their opinions spread online. Moving on, the next conspiracy theory on the iceberg is there was no ego. So ego in Russian is like oppression, Golden Horde oppression that Russia went through in the 13th, 14th centuries. This theory poses that there was no oppression, that Golden Horde did not conquer Russia, that Golden Horde either never made it to Russia, or they made it to Russia, maybe they fought, but actually they were more cooperative, other than, the Golden Horde just suppressing Russian government. And I mean, this is a weird one for me, because I think we have so many just artifacts and materials proving that there was actually Golden Horde and they were actually oppressing Russia. But the proponents of the theory, they think that it's not true because they did not leave any genetic evidence in the modern Russian people of their presence. So if you would have had those Mongols raging and pillaging and raping the Slavic states at that point, you would think that they would leave a lot of like their own genes in our gene pool, but at least according to them, there's not enough Mongol Tatar admixture in the Russian gene pool to definitively prove that. Also, people who believe in the theory, they speculate that there are Chinese books written in like 13th, 14th century, written by the Mongols themselves, that never say anything about venturing into Russia. So there are some like evidence of this theory, but to be honest, I still think that it's not true. And I do think that it's a theory that is out there because some people just don't want to believe that Russia was once conquered by the Mongols. And I understand that it's not a pretty thought, because like Russia is a strong country now and people are really proud of it. But every country in their history have their own low points, and that was one of them for Russia. So the next one will be the ball lightnings. And this one is interesting one, and this one is really close to me because, so basically what is ball lightning? So you have your regular like lightning bolt, you know, the one that goes from sky to earth, just like this white streak. And like that's okay, that's regular. But ball lightning is just like this spherical like ball of lightning that like flies around and does some stuff. And it's personal to me because my own grandma told me stories from her childhood that she would see all of these like lightning bolts everywhere, always when she was young. Like she would sit at home, you know, a storm started raging outside, and like suddenly through an open window, this ball of lightning just like flew into the village home where she resided, and she had to hide from it because it was going all around destroying stuff, and then it just disappeared. And like, first of all, it's really interesting that all the people who were met with the ball lightning, they always say that it acts like it's alive. You know, it acts like as if it's searching for something, or as if it's looking for something. It has a certain goal, and then once the goal is reached, or maybe it's not reached, the ball disappears. But what's interesting to me is that I've been noticing online people bringing up, oh, my grandma told me this story, oh, my grandpa told me this story. And the stories are always the same. The story is always that like, oh, I was a small child living in a village, I was home alone, and there was a storm raging outside, and for some reason the windows were open, and the ball of lightning came and it started smashing everything around, so they had to hide under the table or whatever, and this ball of lightning would just go around, destroy everything, and then leave or disappear. And yeah, like people online, like my age, maybe slightly older, they all share stories that their grandmas and grandpas, and the stories are all pretty much the same. I really don't have like much of an explanation for that, and all I can say is that perhaps they heard these stories when they were young. They heard these stories when they were young and impressionable, and over the time they just forgot that it was a story that they heard, and they started to think that it's a story that happened to them. And it would kind of explain why people all across Russia had their grandparents told them this story, because like people from Moscow heard it from their grandparents. I live in Siberia, I heard it from my grandparents. People from Far East heard it from their grandparents. So grandmas and grandpas everywhere told the story to their grandchildren, which is weird. But it's not weird if we consider that they heard it on the radio, they read it in the newspaper, and then they started to think that it happened to them because over the years they just forgotten that they read it somewhere. Now we're at this barrier between the first and the second layers, and I want to cover these three conspiracies and just like paranormal theories because they're really interesting. And first of all will be the Tunguska meteorite. And I think like you all know this story. In 1908, deep in Siberia, meteorite fell down, it exploded. It was like one of the largest, biggest explosions, meteorite, whatever events that happened in the recorded history. It destroyed the forest, it sent ripples across the globe, you know, all of the machinery kind of like recorded that, and people started to explore what happened. And of course, there were like dozens upon dozens of conspiracy theories that it was first nuclear test, that it was aliens, of course it's always aliens, that it was wrath of God, that it was a sign for the things to come. And like, to be real with you, for me, there's nothing paranormal in this. I mean, yeah, that happened and it was really intense, but also it was just like a meteorite that hit the earth, did not hit the earth, it exploded in the atmosphere, caused a lot of destruction. I think that some people died from it, but I hope that it didn't. But also, if they died, I mean, even if they survived, they have already died because it was like more than a century ago. But yeah, now this place, I mean, it's kind of like sacred place, you know, people come there, they explore, they just like try to get this energy of this like event. And I mean, who really would do that? But some people really love to just visit that place and maybe try to find the meteorite pieces or whatever. But yeah, I mean, I don't think it's that interesting compared to the next one, which is Dulles Plan. Dulles Plan, I think it will ring with my American audience because it's named after Allen Dulles, chief of CIA in like the 1940s. And basically what it stipulates is that there was this secret plan, Dulles Plan, that was made up by the CIA and like American government in general in late 1940s to plan out the destruction of the USSR. It really is like a mirror image of what you Americans thought about the invasion of the USSR into America through the means of culture and propaganda. What McCarthy fought against was also similar to what people in the USSR, or like actually after the fall of the USSR, to be honest, thought what had happened with Russia. So the main text of this like supposed plan had come out in 1970s in the book called The Eternal Call. And basically this book was about Soviets fighting against Nazis and Nazis proclaiming that they tried to destroy Russia through the means of propaganda and just cultural subversion. But like as a Dallas plan, it was published in 1993, so like 2 years after the USSR had fallen, by Ivan, the Metropolitan of St. Petersburg and Ladoga. And he published it saying like, this is what the Americans used, like the plan that they used to destroy the USSR. Because in 1993, there were like a lot of people who were really bitter that the USSR have been destroyed because they loved the country. And as a actual basis for this like Dallas plan, a lot of people use the document NSC-20/1 US objectives with respect to Russia. But to be honest, when comparing the documents, like the wording, it never ever coincides. Like there's nothing of the sort, you know, to what people have in the Dallas plan in that document. So basically Dallas plan supposes that the USSR will be destroyed by the fifth column, so it will be like inside job, you know, stirring the pot inside the country, making people disbelieve in the Soviet ideas, making people more materialistic, you know, sex-driven, scared, angry, hating each other, not cooperating, not thinking about the greater good, not thinking about developing themselves, being lazy, being, you know, all about the consumption, you know, eating a lot, drinking a lot, having a lot of sex, taking drugs, making the culture more materialistic. The songs are not patriotic and not about, you know, love and family and all the good things. But the songs will be, for example, all about violence and killings and money and prostitutes and whatever. A subversion of the government structure, putting their own people in the positions of power as to subvert it, to make it ineffective, filled with bureaucracy, you know, also like not helping the citizens, make citizens distrusting of the government. Like this all was a part of the supposed Dallas plan to destroy the USSR by the US powers. And this Dallas plan is still making rounds in Russia, even though it was of course like very quickly disproven, and a lot of people came out to say that no, it's not true, it's just like propaganda, it's just fiction, it never existed. Even though this plan was disproven, it still captured people's imagination, because it's kind of the same what you had once again with the Red Scare in America, where even though maybe Red Scare wasn't really there, it still was very active in the American society and kind of active to this day. But to me, what it proves is that when you have two countries with totally opposite ideologies, you will have those countries believe that the other one will try to subvert its culture and, you know, corrupt its people. And the last theory here is the cooperative ozero, or cooperative lake. This one is a lot, and I will not be able to explain it all, but you can look it up. You can see there are videos online, especially by Navalny, I think Alexei Navalny, who is like the opposition leader in Russia, that really dive deeper into this. But what is it? Like it's a political theory, conspiracy theory that basically poses that in the early 90s, after the fall of the Soviet Union, Vladimir Putin and a lot of really powerful politicians, they have all bought dachas, and dachas are this like plots of land where you can build your own house. So they bought dachas and they organized the cooperative ozero in the St. Petersburg region. And basically they got all really close to each other, so Putin and other powerful political figures from that time, and living closely together, having all of these dachas in one area, basically creating gated community for themselves, help them to plot together to take the power in Russia and to, or you get this and you get that, you get this money and you get that position and you become the president, but we also are all in this together, so we kind of like control you, but you also give us what we want, but we also give you the power. And it's not a conspiracy theory in terms of that this cooperative does not exist. It very much really exists. But some people may say, well, I mean, you cannot prove that only because they live together they are actually in a conspiracy. No, they just live together in, this like plots of land that are right next to each other just because they like it. Or maybe just because they're friends. But we always know in politics, no matter whether it's Russia, China, America, Europe, whatever, you help your friends and your friends help you, and that's how you get power. So there's like really, really a lot that goes into this, and it really warrants its own video. But for now, all I can say is that like Cooperative for Zero, it's a really existing thing. It's a gated community in the St. Petersburg region where Putin and his closest allies bought property back in like early 90s or maybe even late 80s, and they became friends, and supposedly they had helped each other to reach their highest echelons of power in Russia, because they were already powerful before that, but plotting together, living alongside each other, constantly being in touch with each other, totally helped them. I think if they were to do that, it would really help them to promote themselves, to help each other, and to really rise to power. So there you have it. This is the first layer of the Russian conspiracy iceberg. Thank you so much for watching this video. I really want to continue with this, but I want to know if you like it or not. So if you like this video, please press like, subscribe, leave your comments, tell me what you think, and I will gladly see you in the next video. Bye.